Hello, my name is Renee L. Rose. I'm the founder of Explore Art Talk. With Explore Art, our featured guests, we have meaningful conversations celebrating artistic and cultural diversity that makes our world extraordinary. So sit back, relax, and check out our content. Thank you for joining us today.
How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you doing?
Excellent. Now we really have a chance to connect. That's great.
Yes, I love your scenery. It's gorgeous.
Well, 3 or 4 years ago, we moved out here to Fairport, New York.
Oh, okay. Is that north of New York City?
It's a little east of Rochester.
Oh,
So we're more in the country than I've ever been.
do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. It's very, very attractive.
Yeah, it's great for your painting, I'm sure.
I've just been able to do a little painting around the grounds of the house, but I haven't really gotten out into the woods.
Oh, I would love. See, I'm an artist too. I haven't done any oil painting in a while, but I would love to paint landscapes, and the woods would be oh so attractive to me because I love trees.
Oh, well, you see, we got loads of trees around, and the landscape is very inspirational. I could actually just paint out my window and
That's
do
what I'm
nothing.
saying. I could just look out your window and just, oh God, I would be lost in painting all day. Probably wouldn't get anything work done.
Oh, you seem to be doing quite a lot.
Yeah, I've always been like that. Art has always been like my love and my passion because I had a totally different career. And now I'm all focused on my magazine.
Well, listen, we did something with you years ago. What was that about?
That was the same thing. My magazine was initially called ACS Magazine because I had a gallery at the time when I started my magazine. And then I stopped a little bit when there was the pandemic. And I started back and I changed the name to Explore Art. And yes, I have to look it up, but yeah, I think in 2000, maybe it was in 2016 or 17, you were in the magazine.
Yep, I think I remember that. And how did you get started in the gallery business?
Well, I'm supposed to be questioning you and you're questioning me. I love it. Well, I was actually at the time I was lobbying. I've always been into politics because I have a family into politics. And I painted when I was in high school, and I said I wanted to do something to relax. So I started getting into painting approximately about 2009 again, and I became engrossed in it. So I got a studio in a well-known art center in Chicago and started had a studio there. And after I did it for a while, because I've been into business and did so much, I said, I think I want to do a gallery. So I started my gallery and just it really became popular and started showing other artists. And I said, I really want to start a magazine because I feel that arts and culture is not taught in the schools and not readily prevalent like it was when I was younger. And I think there's so many creative, talented people out there. I mean, just globally. And I wanted to be able to show them and expose them and show people what I'm so passionate about. Because not only just visual artists, I love music, dance, opera, and then I love to travel. I like different cultures. And I think this is with mankind, that's how you find out about people. That's how you find out about things, and discover the world. So that's why I did it.
Well, I want to shake your hand because we are on the same page.
Oh, okay. So
All
tell me,
those things, all those things that you said that you like to do, I love to do.
really, tell me all about your life within the arts because I see that your whole entire family has been into art.
Yeah, did I send you an invitation to our new exhibit that we have up right now in Rochester?
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And that's a show that took me months to organize,
Oh, wow.
just putting my hands on all these physical objects. There's over 90 pieces in the show.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
But I grew up in this family of artists, so we were very, very productive. I'm still very productive.
Yes, I see that. I see that. So your dad was a lifelong artist. Tell me about that.
Yeah, he was my major mentor, and actually, we ended up working together
Oh,
on
wow.
projects. This show that we're having is actually in the main library in Rochester. And, we collaborated on design projects and book projects and even artwork that we worked on together,
Oh,
which is
wow.
kind of unusual, right?
Yeah, it is. That's wonderful.
I mean, the only family that I can think of is sort of like Andrew Wyeth and Jamie Wyeth, is only in the sort of similar vein.
Yes. Yeah,
Not that my work is so totally representational. Some of it is.
yes.
Maybe my more illustrative work is representational, but I also love working abstractly. So,
Yes.
it takes me in lots of different directions and lots of different places.
Yes. So were you always a professional artist or did you do something else and get into that?
Oh, I've always been interested in writing.
Yes.
And so I've been a reader and a writer all the time. I have a blog that has
Yeah.
been published since 2012, and I think I've had more than 450 posts that I've written.
I read your blog. It's really nice.
And it takes into account a lot of the art that's going on here in Western New York.
Oh, okay.
And then whenever I get a chance to go to a museum, I usually take, notes and photos of what I'm looking at, and I like to communicate to people about it.
Yes. Yes.
So I would have a magazine like you would.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't done that.
Well, it would take, I think, much more of my energy, and I like to direct that energy to the artwork itself.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I'm kind of a multitasker and stuff. And one of my I guess my to-do list is to get back into my painting. But now that I've eliminated some other things, I'm definitely going to do that. I plan on starting back this year.
So you're still in Chicago, aren't you?
Yes, I'm in Chicago, Illinois. Yes. I have a friend that lives in Whitehall, a very close friend. She's an artist that lives in Whitehall, New York.
Okay,
Yes. Yes.
good. So, you have a close friend in the arts?
Yeah, I have lots of friends in the arts. Oh God, I have lots of friends in the arts.
You see, that's something I really I
Yeah.
admire, and I have lots of connections like that too. I I treasure my friendships with the people in the arts and my students as well.
Yeah, since I started my magazine, the thing I love about it, I've met artists and became close to them all around the world. When you start reading people's stories and you're featuring them, you learn a lot about them, and I stay connected with them. And plus, I've traveled too, so that's what I love about it. I'm a people person, so I love that. I love that part of it, and to really get to know the person and their creative, talents is amazing because I think the backstory is really what gets people passionate about the art. That's why I like your blog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I started off with, in an artistic family, and a lot of my parents' friends were major artists and designers. And so I think I've been living with this my entire life. It's something that I'm 100% committed to.
So when did you become a professor? I guess I want to ask, when did you start really assisting and mentoring other artists? Was it before you were a professor or after you became a professor?
Oh, I think I remember that there was an event that happened in New York when I was still living in Brooklyn,
Oh,
that the stock market had a terrible crash, and I had a contract that I was supposed to do illustrated books for the National Geographic,
ooh,
and they reneged on their contract.
oh my God.
And so I had to look for a job.
Okay,
And
okay,
so that's what got me into being a professor. I don't think I would have done that had the stock market not crashed.
yeah, yeah.
And so I was without employment for a little while, and I had a young son, my wife and my son depending on me. And so go get a job, Alan. Get a job. Get your resume out there. And luckily, the people at RIT saw something that they liked, which happened to be a whole series of postage stamps that I had done for the U.S. Postal Service with my father.
Oh, wow.
And the person that hired me at RIT was a stamp collector. So
Oh,
he knew my work. He
oh,
knew my work.
wow.
So they gave me a job and I became a professor within a couple of years. And I so much enjoyed the work that I stayed on till just recently. I've now, stepped away from my daily responsibilities.
Oh, so tell me, what type of classes did you teach as a professor?
I did a lot of different things. I did a class in painting
Oh, wow.
for graduate students. I did undergrad. I did illustration. I did graphic design.
Oh, wow.
And I taught a business practices class for people who get involved in the visual arts. They often don't know how to conduct themselves with a business frame of mind. And so every year I gave a class and would invite some of my people that I know from the area, like whether they're like a director of a museum or they run an advertising agency or other artists, to come and speak about what it's like being a professional.
Exactly. I think you're like innovative with that. That's the one thing that really bothers me about the visual arts. Music is I think it's different. They seem to have that together, but not coming from an art background, because my master's in undergrad is definitely not in art. That was just always my passion. I didn't understand why art schools like you don't teach business classes, because a lot of artists are great at their craft, but they're not so good at the business side of it. Why is that?
It just might be that they always paid attention to their creative drive and weren't really in touch with how those things get out to the broader public at large.
Yeah. Why don't
So,
all the schools do like you did and just teach business classes for artists?
well, that's obviously a question you'd have to direct to the other those other colleges.
I
But
thought
I know that
you knew.
where I went to school in New York City, at the Cooper Union, um, they didn't have any business class, and I always thought that was a big deficit. I
Yeah,
hope, I hope by now that they've, resolved that and changed that. I mean, there you're sitting in the big city, and you got to make connections.
exactly. Even if you're not in the city, I think if you want to make your art practice a business, then you need to understand about marketing, especially now with social media, and just you have to learn how to present, your art and the markets and everything. But I'm finding a lot of people that I interview, they haven't taken business classes and their schools don't offer it.
Well, it could start as something as simple as being able to keep an inventory
Oh,
or having the right measurements for the objects that you've just made, or knowing even about the materials and whether they'll withstand being shipped across the country.
yeah, yeah,
Simple stuff.
yeah, simple stuff.
But
Exactly.
that's where we start.
Exactly. You'd be a great consultant on that. Are you going to do any consulting now that you start being a professor?
I think I'm still doing some of that,
Okay,
but mostly for my students who have now graduated and, want advice on how
yes,
to pursue things like that.
yes,
So I'm still in touch with a lot of the folks that I taught.
yes, yes. So
Some
are
of them
you,
are actually winning awards for the work that they've done. So they're already kind of launched.
oh, wow, that's awesome. That's really, that probably makes you real proud, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks that I taught that are still staying here in the Rochester area.
Okay,
So I'll come across and see their work on exhibit or chat with them at an opening. And, I think that the only thing that I would say is changed is that the pandemic has put a damper on a lot of people's business.
really? Even though it's kind of the pandemic's past, tell me how that's affecting, how do you think it's affecting people?
Well, I think there are people that I know that get nervous at going to an opening and just mingling with crowds of people.
Oh, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that has come up in conversation. And
Wow.
of course the pandemic is past,
Yeah,
but still people have had been affected by it. And a lot of people with businesses that I knew, whether they were in food or whether it's selling art, a lot of the business has been dampened down.
yeah, that I know. That I know, but I was curious as to, for as artists, um, I guess one of the things I think that really helped, I mean, well, I don't know if it helped all artists, but the pandemic, artists had to learn how to really promote their practice over social media and on the internet. And with Artsy and more art being sold on the internet, how do you think that's affected a lot of artists?
Wow, that's a very big question because that's what we've moved into.
Yes,
And selling your artwork online, well, people like myself, you could have a website and offer your work that way.
yes.
And you just have to be aware that there are folks out there that uh, could scam you also. So you have to be very
Yeah,
uh, you have to have the ability to do the right research.
yes, yes, yes. Well, also I have seen, this is before the pandemic, I saw more smaller galleries closing. And I also, since I've gotten into the arts, to me, I think you have more artists learning how to sell their art and promote their practice without going through a gallery. Do you find that more artists are doing that, or are they still going through the gallery way? I think,
Uh, I think that you're right about that. A lot of, especially younger people, are doing a lot more business online. And that I think has come here to Rochester in a big way,
oh, really? How?
promoting promoting their own website, promoting their own blog, promoting their own materials,
Mhm.
uh, maybe through having social gatherings, parties,
Oh,
having the fact that they've become influencers in the area.
oh,
Uh,
wow. That's
this is
nice.
a thing that you know websites like Etsy
Yes.
offer, and there are numerous others, of course.
And social media is, I mean, Instagram, TikTok, it's really made artists really noticeable and attract a lot of people, because I do see a lot of artists doing what you're talking about. And they
Yeah,
have to,
little short videos
yes,
posted on your Facebook page, the
yes,
latest painting that you've done.
yes,
You establish these dialogues with people that you may not have even met before.
yes. And
People,
globally,
and so that's a major factor, I think. It's
yes,
going to be with us, I think, from here on in.
yes, yes, I think it's affected the industry, because the fact that Artsy came out a little bit, well, before, let's say, 2008, and now they're one of the premier, websites in the world that sells art, and they couple with Art Basel. I think that's really helped, and the pandemic has really helped driven art sales online. Even though you right, you have to be careful of how you do that. I think that's a good thing for artists.
Well, artists, a lot of people get involved in the art fairs, which
Yeah.
really have taken off. And I know as a, my own thing is I love going to these big art fairs just to see what's happening in the
Yeah, we
world.
have big ones in the Chicago land area, in Chicago and in the suburbs. They have some that are every year that are really, that attract artists from all around the country. They're really nice.
So have you gotten involved in that since you've been involved with the art scene?
Well, when I was doing art, and when I was just painting, when I was doing my own art, I was doing a lot of art shows and stuff. But now I just go because I want to go. I had
Mhm.
I had one in my legacy magazine, ACS. I reported on one of the major art shows. It's in Old Town, a part of Chicago that's been there for years, and it's their art center. I did something on them, but I usually don't report on a lot of the festivals. I go to them, but I don't report on them. I usually focus on the individual artists. And I go to the expos too. I've been to Art Basel. I've been to Armory in New York. Go to the Expo Chicago, which is coming up in April. So I've gone to those. Those are fascinating. Those are
So
very fascinating.
as a gallerist, had you gotten involved in showing your work that way?
No, I hadn't. I didn't get to that point. I know people who have, because, well, you couldn't show an Art Basel, or you could, but it's very expensive. It is extremely
Mm.
expensive. And Art Basel Week, they have a lot of smaller, well, not smaller, but they have all kind of other art fairs. I missed all type of art fairs and art companies that you could show in. But again, you just have to pay for the booth, and that can be quite costly. I didn't do that. I went down there to really, because I got press credentials when I went to Basel, and I went to the press conference that Art Basel had, and I learned a lot about the art industry. That's what was fascinating to me, how Art Basel and the USB Bank, their wealth center, they help stabilize the art world in the world. The US
Mm.
Bank has one of the largest collections of art in the world. I found that out. It's just fascinating. It's really fascinating how they operate. But I find that that's like the 1% of the art world who can get into Art Basel. And to get into, they have other things like they'll have artists that are rent a room. They allow that during Art Basel week, and they'll show their art in a hotel room. The whole hotel would be like that. They have a lot of smaller places. But I think the main galleries and the main expos, that's like the higher echelon of the art world. And then you've got all these other people who are out here creating outstanding art, and they have not been allowed entry into that. So I think it's really smart to artists to find their own way and to promote themselves and to really get established, because just wishing for to get into a gallery to show your art, and some galleries are not always the best for you because they don't necessarily sell your art and they take such a high percentage on commission. I'm glad artists are moving into really doing things themselves.
Well, this is my point. This is the thing that I saw over and over again with my students. They all wanted to know how to get into the gallery. And I said, well, maybe the gallery is not the place for your particular artwork. Maybe you
Exactly.
got to go and be on your own and be your own representative. So that's why I think the
Correct.
fact is, that I taught one day I'm teaching a class on how to paint. The next day I'm teaching a class on how to sell that painting
Exactly.
and make that connection and be present, be engaged.
Exactly. Oh God.
And that's my field.
Yes. I think that's what they need. Um, as I got out there more and I became more, involved with more artists and going to more shows and stuff, I found there's it's a large percentage of people that really don't know what you're talking about. Even mature artists that have been painting all their lives are intimidated of, they're great at their art, but they're intimidated to, applying for shows, or they take it personal when they get rejected. And a lot of times they say, curators are curating shows because they have something in mind, and that it's not personally against you. They're afraid of doing that, and they're just not good at explaining their story of why they do what they do. So they need people like you to help them.
Well, that intimidation, actually, when I was young, that intimidation started right away when I first started to go into galleries.
Oh,
And, you'd go into a gallery and the person wouldn't even look up and see who you are or make any kind of connection. They
that'll,
look,
yeah.
or they look at you and 1 second they size you up and they figure, oh, that person's not going to buy the work, so why should I talk to them?
Exactly. That's that aloof snoopiness. You are so right. And a lot of people are intimidated by that.
Right. So when I was a kid, I think I started to get over that early on because my parents would bring me into art galleries
Good.
every Saturday. We would go into New York City and go into the village and look at the art galleries down there, and it was a real education, really starting from the time that I was a kid.
Yes. Oh, yes. And maybe that's how they should do it, because even I find we have some major art galleries in Chicago, but when I ask people, a lot of them never been. I'm talking about artists.
Mm.
Have openings and shows. I go. I don't care about, what people are thinking. I go to receptions and you meet. That's how you network. I think also getting your art out there is networking and getting to know people.
So Renee, what type of artwork was your gallery representing? I mean, I
Didn't represent
don't.
I didn't represent any particular, you might as well say I was a show display place, because I didn't represent any particular art style. I represent what I thought was attractive to me. And I was not a typical gallery. And I did get on Artsy, and I actually sold a lot of different pieces of the people. When I was on Artsy, and even in my gallery, I selected pieces of art that I thought would sell, and they did sell. So I didn't limit myself into, oh, it's all representational, or it's all abstract, or it's all classic. And if you notice my magazines like that, I don't fall into the art world categories. I'm attracted to creativity. I'm attracted to that person and that energy that it gives me. And I'm curious about why they do what they do, how they arrive the way they do arrive to a point, and how that's reflective of their art. So I show my magazine, and that's where it was with my gallery, people from all walks of life.
So what do you think about the images that I sent you? Uh, are there any ones that are personally stand out for you, or that you want to know about a little bit more?
Well, oh God, thanks for asking that. Yes. Let's start off with your abstract, okay? Because
Okay.
I, how long have you been doing that type of abstract? And the reason why I'm asking, because it's almost, if you did it a long time ago, it's futuristic, because I'm seeing a lot more of that now, especially with digital and AI art. I think it's fascinating.
You know what you're talking about, AI. A lot of people are worried that AI is going to take their job away from them,
Oh,
but I think they have to learn to use AI as a tool.
I use it. I think I love it, because I do a lot of graphic design and Adobe stuff that has nothing to do with my magazine. I agree with you. I totally,
And a lot of work that I'm doing now that is digital got its start when I came up here to Rochester to teach. And, because it's a school that's RIT, it's a technology
approximately
school.
what year are you talking about? When,
I came up to teach here in 1988.
oh, wow. Yeah, you were before your time.
And I didn't own a computer in 1988. I don't know, not many people did.
No.
So I was
Wow.
thrown into the situation where I had to teach digital art maybe by 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought my first computer and I started to fool around with it just like you
Yes,
would, you know?
that's what I did. Yes. I told
And boy,
myself,
it was interesting.
yeah, I've
So,
always thought it was fascinating.
I have followed that path to the point where now some of my artwork is really using mathematics almost as a tool to create imagery. This is something that they never taught me when I was a youngster,
So
that you
tell me
could,
how you do that. Wow.
well, there are programs, and you could see even starting with something like Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop uses a grid of pixels. They're little tiny squares of color, and you add them up, and they make something that looks like a photograph.
Yes.
So if you think about pixels as it's just a grid of color.
Yes. A palette
And
of color.
so
Yes.
I'm learning how to work with those little grids of color and make something different
Oh,
that
wow.
hasn't really happened in visual art to that
No,
degree.
no. Yeah, your color and the geometrics and the harmony with it. And have you played with like 3D images?
Yes.
Yeah, some of your stuff looks like that. And I'm like, wow, he was doing this long time ago. I mean, you were doing this before. People are really into it now, but you were kind of, I see how you were advanced and starting that off before people were getting into it.
Yeah, I think in 2010, I was big into it.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the fact that you have control of 3D images and you can turn them any way you want, see them from right or left or above or below. And
Wow.
I create my own form. So it's sort of like an amalgamation of sculpture. It's like set design for a theater.
Yeah.
It's color. So it's all of these things,
It's
and
like
you
your
put them
own world.
together, and you get this three-dimensional picture that didn't exist before.
Yes.
And it's not photography, but it's using these programs to render 3D images.
That,
And so if you take a look at a piece that I sent you called Street Talkers,
okay.
Street Talkers has a lot of this 3D imagery.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Another one that I sent you is called Auslander, and that has, you know, these miraculous things that I couldn't have predicted until I got involved in this branch of digital art, which uses mathematics and uses geometry and uses color and uses light. Light is very, very important. I make a connection with set design and theater, the way you would light people on a stage.
Yeah.
And so you start to get involved in the colors of those lightings
Oh,
and the shadows that they cast. And you're really bringing something to life that way.
so you
So
have
that's what I do.
all of that. And the reason why I wanted to see the exhibitions of it, because once you've done it, you have to also choose how you want to show it. And I like the fact that you have really, really large pieces to very, just typical square pieces. I think that has a lot to do with it too. That's fascinating.
Well, I got very influenced when I was, let's say, in my 30s and 40s. What was happening when I was living in New York was graffiti,
Oh yes, I love graffiti art.
and painters like Jean-Michel Basquiat
Oh yes,
was a big influence. I used to see him on the street.
he
I
was
knew where
great.
his studio was.
It's good.
I'd bump into him and Keith Haring.
Oh wow.
And I once worked for a publisher next door to Keith's studio, and I would see what he was doing every day
Oh
because he
wow.
always left his front door open.
Oh, that's a blessing.
So you could see him working on his art. So I had close connections to graffiti.
Yes. Did
And
you
so
ever
some of
try?
my early work that I sent you, oh, I'm thinking a new feeling floating, or the desert comes alive at night. These are very big pieces that I made with oil paint, but they were really influenced by the graffiti that I saw literally every day on the street.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So I would say that that had a big, big impact. And I think it's still having an impact on people today.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like, I can't say, oh, I'm a follower of Cubism, or I'm interested in surrealism. I put all these things together.
Yeah. I like you for that because that's how I am. I'm not stuck on one, and there's nothing wrong that people like that, but I've always had a lot of interest. And when it comes to art, I'm all over the place. I like it all. And it's usually a particular person or a particular pieces. And then I go to another genre, is something else. Yeah.
Well, Renee, I think that's why we connect so well, because
Yes.
your interests are follow my interests. Like I say, I want to shake your hand
Oh,
because we have a great agreement on that. You were talking about landscape painting before, and I got started doing a lot of landscapes when I was still a teenager.
yeah.
And I'm attracted to nature. Matter of fact, that's why I called our show in Rochester that's on right now, Our Nature,
Yes.
because it's the centerpiece of my life.
Yes. I live in an apartment, but my I have plants. It looks like a jungle. And my grandmother, when she moved from the South to Chicago, she had a garden. She never went to the grocery store. She had all vegetables, things you can think of. So I got that kind of from her, but I love nature because I think it helps balance you. It helps.
Renee, you're making me smile because the nature is really an important part
Important.
of my life, and I also have loads of plants.
Yes. Yes, that's why I noticed that before I said, "Oh God, look at that background. I wish I were him." That is
Yeah,
so.
I could turn this around a little bit, and there's my orchids are blooming, and
Let me show you
my philodendrons are going crazy, and so
my.
we have a lot in common.
Yes, yes, exactly. I could not live my life without being around plants, and I love animals too. This is the first time I haven't had. I used to have cats. I'm going to get cats again. I have fish, but I love nature. I think nature and animals teach you so much about being human,
Well,
and
we really agree on that, boy.
helps you to respect.
I'm right on your wavelength.
Yes, and it helps you respect life and respect, you know, just the blessings of the variety of what this planet has to offer that people just take for granted, you know.
Well said.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the diversity of your career, the longevity of it, and it comes from your heart, you can tell. It's
I
a
hope for I hope for many more years of it also. I mean,
yeah.
I've been engaged with the arts literally since I was a kid. My brother is also an artist. My brother Paul, he does a lot of graphic design, and his art is also featured in our family show. He's done a lot of the graphic design for the Erie Canal. So if you walk along the Erie Canal and along its entire length, literally, you'll see the graphics that he did that spell out the history of this major thoroughfare in New York State.
Wow. And
So he's involved in visual art, and sometimes he's just doing paintings of bouquets of flowers, So we've I've grown up in this family that's got a major involvement in the arts. My mom was also a painter and a textile artist. And, she was a person who loved to get put together puzzles, just like I do.
wow.
And so she would sit down and she would do the crossword puzzle on a Sunday and get it started and finished in an hour or two.
Oh, wow.
So she had fun making that happen, and I have fun now with my wife, Anna. We put together big puzzles.
Oh, wow, that's something else. When I was younger, people used to do that. I don't know if people do puzzles as much as they used to. That was a big thing. When
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I was like, wow, so you're good at that. Because I had cousins who had get those puzzles that had 3,000 pieces. I'm like, oh my God. And they would finish them. I'm like, oh my God. It's really an art form to really stick at it, and the patience, and it's also relaxing to be able to.
Well, yeah, the art that I do, I treat almost like a puzzle. Like, what piece goes next? What would work here? What would make this painting better? What are the parts that I'm missing? And, now that I'm working a lot more with mathematics, I try to do this by experimentation. Experimentation is a big thing.
Yeah.
Making mistakes and learning from your mistakes, it's a big thing.
Yes.
So,
That's one thing that a friend asked me about art, and maybe it's like that for you, but to me, when I started really engrossed in getting into painting, it really was a reflection of me, because it helped me work on my shortcomings, like perfection. Nature's not perfect. It may appear
no.
that way. When you get up really close to it, there's holes, there's decay, there's all kind of things. But it does paint a perfect picture, but it helped me really deal with that, you know, that it's
I
not about being perfect.
I always tell my students, don't be afraid of making mistakes. It's an experiment.
Exactly.
You'll learn a lot about yourself.
Yes, I did.
And, when I would do critiques in class, looking at a painting is literally like looking at somebody's handwriting. You can tell a lot about them.
Wow.
Uh, you could tell a lot about their personality through how they express themselves on paper
Yes.
or canvas.
Yes. And
And that's one of the reasons that deeply involves me and engages me in art, and especially going out and looking at other people's artwork, is that, I feel like in a way I've met them through their
exactly.
expression. And that's
Exactly.
important.
And it's just, to me, so phenomenal of how much creative talent there is in the world. I think, especially nowadays, we spend too much time on what human beings disagree on.
Oh boy.
It's much more of what we agree with. That's why I'm doing this too. I believe art and culture can unite the world and make people more passionate, more loving, feel more self-love. And then, because it's hard to hate somebody that you like or you love. So I think the more art and culture that's out there, it can help douse some all this toxicity. It's too much on what we don't like. It's too much things that we're great at liking about each other. We don't have to all be the same. I don't know who told these people that, but I'm like, come on. I admire
Well,
people who
but
aren't like.
Renee, you said you got involved in politics when you were younger, and you know that politics is being played like a team sport now.
Yeah, my father was in office for 37 years, so I was born into it. And where it stresses other people out, it doesn't stress me out, but it's a very toxic environment. And but I had other things. I didn't let it define me. I helped define it because I love helping people. I love being of service. I think that's what life's about. You come here and you to be of service, and things come to you the way they're supposed to come to you. I don't give to get back. I do that because that's what I'm supposed to do. I believe that's my calling. So the other things I do in life, my love for art, culture, and just finding out about people, and explore. I'm an explorer. I love to explore the earth. That balance all the toxicity of the politics I was involved in.
Very good, very good. And Renee, if you're ever out here going east, come on and visit us over here in Rochester.
I'm gonna
I
have
think
to.
you'd find that the city of Rochester's got a lot to offer. Great music, visual arts, photography. That's one of the reasons why I agreed to stay here and build my studio here and enjoy being in the area, because there are so many other people involved in the cultural aspect of things. Yeah, there's politics,
Thank you.
but there's also a lot of cultural things that keep me engaged, and um, it's one of the reasons why I took my family and moved up here from New York City.
And my girlfriend that lives in White House, Serena, she does beautiful artwork. She's doing a multidisciplinary project right now. And she recently won a Rural Artist Award, $10,000. She was one of the artists they picked in New York. I can't think of the award off the top of my head. But I'm trying to focus on more rural artists too, because I think, again, they tend to ignore them. And they have such beautiful talent. And there's so many great artists out there. I'm sure in Rochester, there are just outstanding artists there. But sometimes I think the industry, the art world, sucks up the air of focusing on the artists that are in the cities and tend to ignore the humongous amount of people in rural areas. Like I did one magazine, my old Legacy magazine, through Serena, I interview artists in the Yukon in Canada, and
Wow.
they were so fascinating. Oh, that's one of my favorite issues. So I'm going to be coming up through that particular award she got. I'm going to focus on more rural artists and what they're doing. So I can imagine in your area that it's just great artists. I love it. I'm glad you're there.
It's funny that you mentioned Canada, though, because the printmaking that I do now, which I call transfer prints, is a form of printmaking that's very health conscious. In other words, early printmaking used a lot of caustic materials that were bad for your health. And the printmaking I do now is supposed to be very good for your health. It's not supposed to tear you down, it's supposed to build you up. And I learned about it in Canada
Where in Canada?
uh,
Wow.
through a friend of mine who became a
Wow.
friend of mine who was teaching up at Grand Prairie. It's above in the north part of Alberta.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so I went up there to take printmaking lessons, and this is back in 1995. And it changed me just like that.
no
By
way.
meeting Keith Howard, and he ended up going around the world talking about printmaking styles that either will help your health or harm you. And so I learned a lot and ended up teaching it.
Oh, wow. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad that you're allowing me to feature you. It's,
Oh, well, thank you.
I feel like you're an old friend. I,
Well, like I say, you're welcome to come on over. I'd love to show you the artwork personally and give you a little tour of the area.
well, that's my next phase in art, explore art. I'm in the process of monetizing it, but I do want to in the future travel and go to different places and spend time and report on the art there. So I'm going to keep you to that invitation.
Great. I look forward to it because we have so much in common.
Yes, yes. We're going to keep in touch, Alan.